It is July 29th, 2025. Welcome to It is July 29th, 2025. Welcome to Team Bitcoin News. The markets are closed. I'm no shock here. We're a little down. We have a lot going on this week. We're all on the seat for earnings. We got the Federal Reserve most likely not cutting interest rates, but there's a meeting that's going on today and tomorrow. So we're waiting, all eyes on that. We also had the VIX at I shouldn't say all-time lows, but I mentioned this in a previous video. It's been low. And typically, when the VIX is low below the mean average, it can't stay there and it has to revert back up. And typically when that happens, the markets go down and volatility increases. Let's get into the Bitcoin news. The U.S. seeks to claim 2.4 million in Bitcoin seized from ransomware group. So essentially the FBI in Dallas wants to take this 20 Bitcoin from this ransomware group. The United States has filed a civil complaint seeking the forfeiture of 2.4 million in Bitcoin seized by Dallas FBI, and that will bolster the proposed U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, on March 6th, the president signed into law that we weren't going to sell the Bitcoin anymore. It's going to go into a strategic reserve. And that, the reason I highlight that is if the government's holding it and they're not selling it, the more they confiscate, the less Bitcoin there is on the open market, and that should, over time, increase prices. It's estimated the government holds about 198,000 Bitcoin, but it's hard to get an exact amount, as this article highlights, because they classify it as different things and it's in different agencies, so it's going to take time to centralize that and understand exactly what that number is. Next up, MARA, holder of nearly $6 billion in Bitcoin, raises another almost $1 billion to buy more Bitcoin. So another Treasury holding company, in this case it's a mining company of Bitcoin, is adding to Bitcoin. And we highlight this almost every day. More and more companies are adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. And I'm going to talk a little bit more at the end why that is. 21 expects to add another 5,800 Bitcoin before planned listing. And that would increase their holdings to 43,500. Again, another company adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. Wall Street veteran reconfirmed Bitcoin price to hit $444,000. Now, I scanned through this. I did not see a time frame on this. And as I said in the past, I'm kind of like, I could predict it goes down to 60, and I could predict it goes up into $1 million. And if I live long enough, I'll probably see both. So I don't put a lot of stock in these price predictions, but it just, a Wall Street veteran is confirming that he's bullish on Bitcoin. He basically, Josh said, he's a former Solomon Brothers trader who accurately predicted Bitcoin's March 14th surge to 84,000. He's reconfirmed his forecast that Bitcoin will reach $444,000. He also predicts that Bitcoin will hit $84,000 before it marches up to that level. So as Bitcoin always seems to do, it has the pullback, normally based on some sort of news that's negative, and the traders sell. Some of the whales get out. It causes more supply, which reduces the price, and then when people come back to their senses, they jump back in and then ride that beast up. And that's been the history for 18 years, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Next, well, what do I highlight down here? BlackRock's pioneering Bitcoin ETF has already accumulated 390,000 Bitcoin since its January launch of 2024. And that just shows how strong these ETFs that are accumulating Bitcoin and then having it trade as a stock are collecting. That is insanity. That's a lot of Bitcoin. Next up, how Bitcoin treasury companies are betting on Bitcoin returns. Now, I talked about two of them that are adding more to their balance sheets. It's kind of an interesting take explained in this article, a perception that I hadn't really thought of. And let me cover it. A new financial model leveraging traditional capital markets tools like share issuance and fixed income debt is enabling these firms to outperform Bitcoin itself in terms of BTC terms. So at the core of this model, what we're talking about is the Bitcoin Treasury company. It's just a company that's adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. At the core of the model is a focus on growing the Bitcoin per share BPS ratio. So if you have 100,000 shares, how many Bitcoin and what is that ratio? Is it a tenth of a Bitcoin that backs up each share? Is it a hundredth of a Bitcoin? Kind of an interesting take. You're backing your shares by what is perceived as an asset to, well, let's just keep going with this. Rather than simply tracking Bitcoin's price, these companies aim to accumulate more Bitcoin per outstanding share over time. The result is a growing BTC yield, a return dominated not in fiat, but in Bitcoin units. So I think back to the gold standard. America, when we would issue dollars, would have the equivalent amount of gold to back up that currency. And we went away from that before I was born. What that prevented was the government from issuing too many dollars and devaluing the currency. And when we went away from the gold standard, now we're in a world where we can just print more money. If we have a lot of debt, we'll just print more money to pay that debt. And then when we have more debt, we'll print more money to pay that debt. But at a certain point, people get smart. And that's why Bitcoin's gone up to 23,000 a coin at one point. And that's why you get these insane price predictions, because you're looking at two systems potentially. One, the dollar and what's going on there, and then Bitcoin. And which system do you want to participate in? One that's deflationary or one that is inflationary? And I'll talk really high level on what the president's doing here at the end to kind of address that. And to me, it's really interesting. So in 2024, Strategy, delivered a 75% Bitcoin yield for its shareholders. That's insanity. So if you're not aware of Strategy, Michael, CEO there, he just keeps buying week after week, buying more Bitcoin. And they are, as far as all the companies on planet Earth, they own the most right now, other than BlackRock, but that's different because that's an exchange traded fund. Treasury companies can issue debt at interest rates lower than their expected Bitcoin CAGR, which is compound annual growth rate, using proceeds to acquire more Bitcoin. So essentially, this is a leverage play. They're taking, it's risky. It's risky. That's why MicroStrategy, wow. They started doing it early and it's paying off because Bitcoin is paid off. But essentially, you're taking loans out, you're issuing debt at lower amounts. Say it's 6 to 8%, and then you're turning around and buying Bitcoin. And if you're able to generate a 75% return, which is insanity, you're making the difference essentially. Now you got to factor in taxes and other issues, but that is something. I'm actually trying to do a leverage play similar to that against some real estate that I have. I'm waiting on that decision, but I've asked for quite a bit of money. We'll just see if the bank's willing to cough it up. But they have an introductory rate of 6%. And those IBIT trades that I've showed you in the past, I can generate a lot more than that, even when you factor in taxes. Now, if we go into a crypto winter, then that looks a little different. But from now to like 6 months from now, I just don't see anything yet that would change my mind to go in that direction. So where are we on Bitcoin's price right now? We're at 117,688. So we briefly dipped below 115. We rallied back up. Let me look at the 5-day chart. The 7-day. I know friends of mine in the crypto space were like, oh my God, we're crashing. No, we're just shaking out. We're in a trading range and we continue to be in that trading range. So I don't know how long this will actually take. I'm guessing, I keep saying mid-August to the third week of August is when I would anticipate another rip up. But you could have some crazy news tomorrow, like the Fed decides to cut a quarter point, which really would be minuscule, but that would amp up the stock market and Bitcoin as well, because assets, I've gone back to this before, assets are going to benefit in a rate reduction environment. So what type of assets? Precious metals, potentially. So gold, silver, platinum, Bitcoin, housing, Housing will increase in a rate cut environment. And so that's all coming. We're just waiting for when. It's not if. It's coming. Because, going back to the breaking news here, you got Starbucks that missed earnings for like 6 quarters in a row. You have Spotify that just missed earnings and had its worst drop in like 2 years. Well, those are kind of discretionary items. You don't necessarily need a coffee. Can you live without it? I realize there's caffeine in it and I can't live without it. I got mine right here. But those are things when people are so tight on their budget, they start cutting out the things that they can live without. And Spotify would be one of those things. Possibly Netflix. Definitely cable TV. And as this stress hits the economy, I'm not saying we're stressed and we're going to roll over, but you're starting to see it right here. I want to conclude with President Trump and what he is doing, because my bullish thesis from day one on Bitcoin has been the weakness of the dollar and the financial system that revolves around that, and the printing of more money backed by the good faith and credit of the United States government, which is really backed by nothing. That system is built to fail. And it has been failing. And it's a very slow cancer that's eating away at America. And until that changes, I'm bullish on Bitcoin. There would have to be something crazy, like the security of Bitcoin and the hackability, if that were to change, or if there was a wave of selling all at once. Possibly I'd temporarily get out, but I want to get back in. There has to be a story change, and I haven't seen that yet. But what is the president doing? It's actually brilliant if you really think about it. So you have consumers, and we spend. That's what America does. We've done it for 30 years. We buy cheap goods for really dirt cheap, and we use them and we throw them away. And that's our consumer environment that we've had for a long, long time. The problem with that is we've incurred so much debt during that duration that our interest to service that debt. Let me pause for 1 second. My animals are making a lot of noise. Hey, no. Our interest rate to service that debt, because rates are higher right now, is, I don't want to say it's bankrupting America, but we'll just print more money and pay it. But at a certain point, you cannot continue to do that. And the article I showed you yesterday, that analyst basically said we're past the turning point, that we can't turn this ship at any point, or in the future. And here's what I'd say. The president has started these tariff wars, and he's renegotiating what should have happened 30 plus years ago. And so the consumer is going to pay a tax. And every consumer is at a different level. We have your low consumers, you have your medium consumers, and your high-end consumers. But in that scenario, as we buy goods from foreign nations, the ones that, the Bugattis and these crazy sports cars shipping from Italy, and those individuals are going to pay the highest tax for their goods. It's going to hurt everybody a certain extent, but it's going to strengthen America long term, right? We're setting up these trade deals. We're countries that have similar tariffs, and they have forever. We don't trade with them. If you go over to Germany, you don't see American cars. You just don't. And there's a reason for that. They're tariffs. Now we're playing that game, and we want fair trade. That's the goal of all this. But we don't want to be in national debt. So the consumer, ironically enough, over time is going to help stabilize our debt. And then you layer that with what Doge was doing, right? If you're spending too much, you have to cut out fat. That's what Doge was. Let's get in there and start looking at everything and cut out the nonsense, because there's a lot of it. Once government sets up a program, 20 years from now, when that program doesn't make any sense, guess what? There's a lot of people that are still employed. They don't want to lose their jobs, and they make a stink when funds get cut. It's just the way it is. And so that was all the Doge. And I hate that the media made a field day of Elon and all that. You have to cut the fat. That's the point. So you have trade barriers that are getting lifted. You're getting laws that are rescinding, making the ability to set up new businesses in America, to create more goods, to ship those off to other nations, to increase revenue. There'll be a breaking point. It won't be under President Trump's term. It'll be a future president that will most likely take credit for all this. But there'll be a point where we're stabilized. What does that mean? Well, we wouldn't be spending more than what we're taking in. And then hopefully that turning point keeps going, but we're turning a cruise ship, the largest one on planet Earth, and we're trying to do it like a NASCAR, and it's just going to take time. I'd love to hear your comments. Put them in the feedback. We didn't talk anything political, either agree or disagree, but why do I bring all this up on the trade stuff? Well, how is that going to affect Bitcoin? We have a lot of crazy right now, and that's why Bitcoin is high. And until the crazy goes away and America stabilizes itself, and then the last part I didn't even talk about is the Bitcoin reserve, the national reserve. I was over in Saudi Arabia for a number of months, several times, and they have their own economic treasury for the citizens, with businesses rolled up into that. And so it's kind of like Alaska and the oil money, and the citizens over in Alaska get a check every year for every person that's alive. That's why there's a lot of kids over there, because it's like, hey, another kid, well, we get another check. Well, oil's starting to dry up. Well, under President Trump it might not, but it's not an infinite resource. So Saudi Arabia is diversifying off that, but the things they diversify into over time, that's part of their national treasury that benefits the natural citizens. And President Trump, that was one of the most brilliant things I think he set up. Why doesn't America have that? We have the power to set it up. We have the power to help our citizens, but why haven't we? But now we have. So again, that's another thing that could take time. They talked about throwing TikTok in there. Again, going back to the Bitcoin stuff, the reason I'm talking all this other stuff with what the president's doing is over time that could change my thesis on Bitcoin, right? If America starts progressively getting stronger and turning the ship and going full steam ahead, then what's going to thrive? Well, I would think the S&P 500 would start kicking butt, which it has been. We're at all-time highs. The NASDAQ, the triple Qs. Gold would probably actually back up a bit. Gold and silver, precious metals, Bitcoin, but we're nowhere close to any of that. If you listen to the Fed tomorrow, you'll realize how broken things are right now. Social Security, unfunded programs, we're spending way too much, and we need to turn the ship. So, all right, again, still bullish on Bitcoin. What did I actually do for my trades today? Well, we had a slight pullback. I closed out a few calls that were uncovered at a profit. I sold a few more puts, and if we have a rip up, I'll probably close those out. I kind of do that every day. I play one side, I play the other. I'm playing all sides, and then I have the shares. I have quite a bit of those. A few of them are in the money. I think a block of 10 of IBIT, I'm going to have to sell out. 10 contracts, it's like 1,000 shares, something like that. I think they're locked in at 66, so we'll see what Bitcoin does. If it trades above 66, then I'm going to get a bunch of cash that goes in the account, but then I'll turn around some more puts. So just part of the fun in the game, and so far, highly profitable. I want to conclude with a trade that I did. I did a video about it, and it was XYZ. And then I did a video about PayPal and their ability to accept 100 different cryptos and spend it. And for some reason, I just didn't make the connection with Block, because that would be a direct competitor. And if PayPal sniped them and opened up a similar service, and potentially it could be better, I don't know. I'd have to look at both of them and test them, which future videos. That, in my opinion, is why Block went down today. So XYZ, let me do a quote. XYZ quote. Again, I'm talking about this company because they are a Bitcoin treasury company. So they're at 78. I believe my option is to buy it at 78. So it's not in the money right now. After hours, it's up a little. I did turn around and sell one more uncovered call at 84, and I made a couple $100 in premium to do that. So it's in my spreadsheet. When my next contract, my next option contract expires out. I'll pull that up. I'll show you how that looks. You know, when you play with uncovered calls, you're essentially playing with fire. So just realize that. That is not, your losses could be potentially unlimited. If block was to go up $1,000 a share tomorrow, I would be on this video crying to you. But again, I've successfully done it in the past. But I do this every day, hundreds of trades. So if block continues to go down, I'll close it out and make the profit on that side, but I'll have to buy more shares of block. So it's just playing back and forth. If you don't understand the theory behind when I'm spinning on my trades, it's really the option wheel. And you can search YouTube, find a lot of people talking about it, but I pick particular stocks. I do it over and over again. Index funds, anything with a ticker symbol that I believe in. And again, on the weekends, I'll try to cover that information more thoroughly. And over time, you'll see how profitable that can become. So, a lot of information, long video. Again, still bullish on Bitcoin. Until we meet again tomorrow.